As we enter into the second half of the year, many Americans probably questioning just how strong is the economy and if we are indeed heading toward a recession.
The R word floating out there, yes. In 12 days, the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee will meet to discuss likely interest rate hikes that will impact millions of Americans. Well, Mary Daly, she's the head of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, and she will be attending that meeting and has all kinds of insight as to where we are, where we're going as we get through this unique period, let's call. Thanks so much, Mayor, for being with us. We genuinely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So listen, just in layman's terms, for everyday Americans watching right now, in 30 seconds, give us your 30,000-foot view of how strong or not strong you think the overall American economy is right now as we talk on this Friday morning.
Well, the economy is strong. We just had retail sales come out today showing that consumers are continuing to spend. The labor market remains strong. I just go through my neighborhoods or across the district in the western United States, and I see two kinds of signs. One sign saying that they have staffing shortages, so they have to close, and another sign saying they're raising their prices because inflation is too high. So we have a strong economy, but inflation is too high, and that's what the Federal Reserve is working on, getting inflation down without tripping up the economy and stalling it out.
Let's talk about the Federal Reserve's actions here. We got Chairman Jerome Powell, his handling of it. I actually want to get your thoughts on a comment that he made last month in Portugal. He said, quote, "I think we now understand better how little we understand about inflation." And that was kind of a head scratcher to me, and I wanted your thoughts on a comment like that.
Well, let me tell you how I think about inflation and what I think we're all grappling with as policymakers, as Americans, is that we haven't had high inflation in a long, long time. And so it was sort of startling to wake up and find that inflation was high for most Americans. But as an economist and as a policymaker, I was less startled. It actually is something that you can expect because we had a pandemic, locked down the economy, and then we opened back up suddenly. And what we learn is that we're ready as consumers to get back out there and buy things and do things. But supply chains are completely under siege. They don't have enough people to do the jobs. We get things from global economies. They're still dealing with COVID, closing their factories. The ships and the trucking systems are all backed up. And so we have this classic imbalance of everybody wants to do and buy things, and we don't have enough things to do and buy. So that causes inflation. So as an economist, as a policymaker, I wasn't confused about what we saw. The piece that's been challenging, of course, is that it's lasted a lot longer than we had hoped. And if you think about why, it really goes back to COVID still running rampant through the globe, even though in the United States it feels like we're getting behind it, or it's getting behind us. And we had the war in Ukraine, which of course raised energy prices and food prices, and that is actually something that's making persistent inflation kind of a troubling thing.
In other words, the economy is not a light switch. You can't turn it off and on quick. And when you had a pandemic that literally stopped the world, it's going to take us a while to get back up and running. And during that process, things are going to get expensive and it's going to take a while. Is that fair?
That's beautifully said. That's very well said.
That's why they pay me the medium bucks. So let me ask you this. The big thing that everyone talks about, this dominates the news cycle, is the price of gas. Bottom line, who has more control over the price of gas? The folks in D.C. and the president, or the big oil executives?
Well, the way the economy works in America, because we have capitalism, is it's a market-based price, and that is about supply and demand. So when we have limited supply and we have lots of people wanting to get gas, then when you go to fill up your tank, it's higher at the pump. And then, of course, there's all types of taxes and regulations imposed on gas as well by states. So all of that adds up to Americans pay more when gas is in short supply, and we still want a lot of it. And so fiscal agents can do some things to help, and they're working on that. The vendors of gas can do some things to help, and they're working on that. But the bottom line is, in a market-based economy, when something's in short supply and everybody wants it, the price rises.
So take us inside this Fed meeting that you're going to be at. What are officials thinking about? What are they considering? We know that we have had several interest rate hikes already, but we are expecting several more. Are there concerns about overcooking things in order to tame down inflation?
Not yet. I'm not concerned about overcooking things because remember, we put extraordinary emergency accommodation into the economy. We put lots of support into the economy, and when we did that, of course, the economy was supported through the pandemic, and now we're just dialing back that support. So instead of thinking about pulling back the reins, think about just dialing back the support we're giving as we raise the interest rate through the end of the year. That should help bring inflation down, should help get the economy back in balance, and should put us on a good footing to have what everybody wants, which is everyone who wants a job can get one, and people don't have to wake up in the morning thinking about inflation and then go to bed at night thinking about inflation. So that's what we're headed to. That's what we talk about at the meeting. The other thing I may share with you guys, if you don't mind, is that the meetings really run differently than I think most people realize. When we all walk into the room, you cross this threshold to get into the room to do the meeting, and there's no discussion of politics or fiscal policy or anything because that's not our role. We talk about the same thing every time. We have two goals: price stability, which means you don't have to think about inflation when you wake up or go to bed, and full employment. Everybody who wants a job can get one. And how do we do that best with the tool we have, which was the interest rate, so that every American has an opportunity to live their lives and be successful? And that's what unifies all of us. And then we debate, of course, how to do that best, but we come out with a decision that we hope helps every American.
And at the end of the meeting, how good an after party is it? You guys go out, you hang out? A bunch of economists. How's that go?
So I don't think people don't get too excited about coming to economist and policymaker after parties, but we do hang out. I mean, it's actually useful to be able to talk. That's the beauty of being back in person a bit, is we were remote for so long, but now I can actually have a coffee break with my colleagues and chat about things, and it's just nice to be back in Washington and going to the FOMC in person. So I'm looking forward to my meeting in just a few weeks, and it'll be a good discussion. And we're really, this is the thing that also I think is worth sharing. We really are making policy as a responsibility. We take it very seriously. So we spend a lot of time focused on how do we do our job well. And someone asked me, what's it like to be a policymaker? What's it like to be inside? I said, it's a bunch of earnest people doing their level best to try to get it right. So I hope that's reassuring for the American people. I know I am working on their behalf, and so is every one of my colleagues.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break and come back and continue the discussion right after this with Mary Daly. Mary, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're joined again by Mary Daly, President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, who has been standing by, which is so generous with her time. We really appreciate you doing this for us, Mary, because we got so many questions about what you all are doing at the Fed. And what we want to know is the message you have to consumers that are getting hit hard right now. And if we keep seeing these interest rate hikes, what the ripple effects are going to be to things like credit card debt, with people in a pinch that have to load up on their credit card spending and really can't pay off, so they got to rack up their interest rates. What about somebody who's buying a home? Their mortgage rates going higher and higher, above 5% recently. What if it continues to climb, say, to double digits? What do you tell that person that says, hey, you know what? We're trying to fix the economy right now. We're trying to cool things off. Just be patient.
Sure. Well, the first thing I start with is that inflation is high, and that is actually tearing away the savings of individuals, tearing away the disposable income. Because if you're showing up at the gas pump or trying to buy a house or pay rent, prices are high and they've been rising. So what we're doing first and foremost is raising the interest rate to help get those price increases down, so that inflation's more like 2% as opposed to 9.1%, which was the most recent number. And that will be savings directly into the pocketbooks of Americans. That will go right into their bank accounts. So the second thing I say is that the interest rate increases that we're taking are not thinking about getting the interest rate up to some extreme proportions or extreme rates. We're talking about raising the interest rate from, close to zero, which is where it was during the entire pandemic that we just went through, to something more like in the 3% range. So when we talked about this, the markets, the mortgage interest rates have already moved up. So I don't really expect them to keep marching up in the large increases that they've already had. So if you're an American family trying to buy a house, then you're seeing something that I think is balancing out. You see your mortgage interest rate go up from what it was a year ago, but you're also not standing in a long auction line of people outbidding you by $100,000 in some cases, as you are the 20th person in the list of bids. So, it's a balancing act. And for people trying to do this right now, it is a little bit painful. It's a little bit nervous making if you think of it, but it is actually going to be better in the long run, because a sustainable economy is one where you want to get a house, you plan with your family, you figure out with your financial advisor or however your mortgage broker, what's the interest rate, what am I going to do? Then you look for a house and you actually make offers and you get the homes. And we don't have that right now because we're kind of in a frothy housing market. So this will cool the housing market. Yes, prices on mortgages will rise, but in the end, it'll be better off for every American.
And obviously right now we're at 9.1%, highest in 41 years in terms of inflation. This is an impatient country. We've been through hell and back with COVID. Now we're living through the economic aftermath of all that. People do have one fundamental question. We see all these rate hikes, we see all these steps and all of these meetings and the great after parties. When will we though begin to feel the prices come down? The Fed is doing everything well and quickly and smartly and strategically, then when are we all going to really start to feel it and get away from these 40-year records?
Sure, absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is that it's too high right now. 9.1, no one likes this, right? If you're a family member, you don't like this. If you're a business, you don't like this. If you're a policymaker, you don't like this. So we are starting to see signs that it's coming down. Today, we got some inflation expectations data from the Michigan survey on consumers, which is a survey of actual consumers in the United States. And those are individuals who say, we think that inflation is going to come down a little bit in the go forward. So inflation expectations drifted down a little bit in the longer run. That's a good thing. When I'm out in my communities in the Western United States, people are saying prices have stopped rising for things I care about. And we're already, of course, seeing a little relief at the gas pump, that prices go down a little bit for a gallon of gas. So this is all starting to happen. I'm looking really carefully at, does it continue? And what I want is for inflation to be less painful by the end of this year than it is right now. And we are going to continue to work until that becomes an outcome that we can count on.
By the end of the year, just to recap, you think things should be better or will be better by the end of the year?
It's coming down. They'll be better, not perfect. I think we're going to continue to work so we can get inflation down to that point where I keep saying it, but you shouldn't have to think about inflation. That's the world we're looking for. But so we're moving towards that. That should happen by sometime in 2023. But by this year, I just don't want to see 9.1% numbers or something even higher. I want to see something quite a bit lower than that. And that's what we're aiming towards.
And just briefly, Mary, you're in San Francisco, a city that is front and center in the discussion around housing. What in both the San Francisco housing market and the national housing market are you looking at right now? Because I know there is a supply issue.
There is a supply issue across many places in the nation. We just don't have as many homes as we have people who want to be in those homes. And so that's something that we'll have to continue to wrestle through. But we also have everybody's out there. They've got money in their pockets, savings, interest rates were low, and there was just a frenzy of activity. And it's not just in San Francisco, a big city, or Los Angeles or Seattle. It's actually in smaller cities like Boise, Idaho, Salt Lake City, Salem, Oregon, where people are signing up for a first-time home. And as I said a moment ago, you're 20 people deep in an auction and you don't have a chance. And that's demoralizing. So what I'm looking to see is, as we raise the interest rate, mortgage interest rates have gone down, and we're already seeing it. The housing market just gets off those frothy levels, and you're more in a place where you're saying, okay, I'd like to buy this home or that home. I'll make a couple of offers, and then not in 6 to 12 months you'll get a home, but in 3 to 6 weeks you'll get a home. That would be the world we're looking for. We're not there yet by any means, but I'm starting to see the green shoots, as sometimes we call them, of hope forming in those housing markets where people feel like, oh, I can actually do this now, which is a good thing.
Scale of 1 to 10 before we go. Chances of the U.S. going into a recession, even a mild one.
So one thing I've learned as a policymaker and economist: don't make a point estimate, don't pick a number. But the thing that I really do want to say is I don't have recession high on my list of outcomes. It's certainly a risk everybody's thinking about. That's okay. But what I really want people to focus on is look at the job market data. It just came out, very strong. Look at the retail spending data. People are still spending. Just go to an airport, a campsite, or a restaurant, all of which I've been to lately, and they are packed and people are excited to be out. We are in a post-COVID economy and people want to get out there and participate. Now it's just about getting inflation down and creating conditions that sustain that.
All right. Mary Daly, President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. Can't thank you enough. Appreciate your time. Enjoy your weekend. We will be back right after this.
Thank you.